Welcome back to part 2 of the whale making video. If you haven't seen part 1, it's available on my channel. This part mainly focuses on me trying to solve my issue in part 1 where the whale didn't move completely and I had to resort back into just moving the fins. Now I went back to the drawing board and wanted to make the whole whale move and get it ready for our summer festival. First thing I did is got myself a 3D printer, long overdue, and then started to make some gears. I've decided I'm gonna need a worm gear as they are super strong and have great ratio. Now, I'm completely new at 3D modeling and 3D printing and so on, so this was quite a big challenge. For the gear, I used a generator and then help from a friend that helped me cut it into smaller pieces so that the printer could print it. I printed it out of PETG because it's going to be outside and it needs to withstand a little bit more heat and a little bit more pressure and outside elements. The 3D printing went smoothly and then I super glued all the parts together. The big gear is finished and it's already spinning, so I'm super happy about it and I think it's going to work. I reused nuts and bolts from the original mechanism because it worked really well on that one, I just needed more power. The end of the bolt actually has a square part at the top, so I'm heating it up with a soldering iron to actually fit into the plastic completely. The last bolt is obviously longer as it holds the attachment point for all the lines, and it spins perfectly. Next, I went ahead and tried to print the worm wheel at a 35-degree angle so that it's gonna be stronger, but the printing failed. So I just decided to print it horizontally and it came out great. It printed with supports, so I had a little bit of cleanup to do, but it didn't take much time. I've also sanded down the rough edges on the gear so there would be less friction. Then I marked down where the hole for the wheel should be and laser cut it out. Then I started up Fusion 360 and I started learning. Next thing I had to do was a mount for the motor and the worm wheel. Luckily, the motor came with a PDF document of its measurements and where the holes are, so this helped quite a lot. I've designed a basic mount for the motor, rounded off some edges, and prepared another mount for the other end of the worm gear. And again, I went to printing. And this works flawlessly. I'm super excited. I gotta be honest, this is the first version that I printed and the holes fit perfectly and everything just worked. The mount on the other end of the worm wheel, actually I made a second one because it didn't fit. There we go, all screwed up and mounted, and time to test it. And it works, and it really works. I tested how strong it is, and I was 100% sure this is going to be able to pull the whale up. Yes. I know it's my first time, but this just looks so smooth and so good. I was super happy. Alright, now I went ahead to mount it all together and start connecting the lines. The next thing I had to update were the lines that pull the parts of the whale, because in the first version they were just dragging on wood or metal and it was screeching and it was quite loud. So I started to print some pulley systems. I've tested a bunch of different ones out and I iterated and retested and so on, and then every one that I made was a bit better than the one before. I've also made a floating pulley for the parts of the whale that are in the middle, because with a floating pulley the distance traveled is halved, so that the middle part of the whale will move less than the outer parts of the whale. And then it was time to put all together again and test it out. Before I started testing the mechanism, the whale needed some glow up. I ordered a bunch of 1 centimeter square mirror tiles, the one for disco balls. Well, when I say a bunch, I mean like 4,000 of them, and decided to turn his mouth and belly into a disco ball. This took quite a while, but it was a therapeutic kind of work. I've also added some mirrors on the fins and the tail. Alright, now put it all together and let's see if the mechanism will work. As you can see, I also printed a pulley under an angle because every line had a different path, so basically I've designed quite a lot of different types of pulleys that work for exactly the task at hand. So I'm attaching all the fishing lines to the main big wheel. I kept printing and adding more pulleys where I needed them. I've noticed in the first version of this that after a full night of running, some nuts came loose. So I super glued the important nuts and actually used double nuts where needed. I also sprayed it with a much needed silicone spray, and that reduced the noise for even more. And here we go! Tested and it works. My dad also came in and gave his approval, as we are using his garage to do this, so it's good to hear. And here we are, time to disassemble and pack it up for Flows Festival. Oh yeah, and a last minute decision, I figured that the mechanism could use some roof as it's going to be outside, so in case of rain, it can be protected. Welcome to the Flows Festival. What you're looking at here is a place that we are going to turn in the main stage called Nevera. This was quite a lot of work, but I had a great team and a couple of days, so we went at it. First, we hung the mechanism from the big tree branch way up high.
Do you know that whales have lips?
Really?
Yeah, look.
And then we put the whale back together again. I started connecting all the fishing lines that hold the parts of the whale, and it was going quite smoothly, so it was very good to test this at home and prepare in advance. There we go. Time for liftoff and first test. Let's see how it goes. I mean, it looks amazing. So time to turn it on, so for the rest of the team to see how this looks. It works, and I knew it's gonna, but it's always good to see it. You might see me holding up the front end because the head is a bit heavier now, but that's easy fix with an additional rope. Then we lift it up high into the sky where it's going to be for the next 5 days. And one more test run with this time lapse so you can see how the movement is crazy good. Then we wrapped up the work on the stage. We've added a bunch of decoration, lit up the speakers, the lighting system, the sprinkling system and so on, and then started the first night. I mean, look at him go, swimming and partying the whole 5 days. He caught a little bit of rain, but that didn't discourage him to continue on, and it was just amazing. You can also spot some of my Pinea lights decorating the stage as well, and there's been other creations that I've done for the festival that I will show in some other different videos. Alright, this is the end of part 2 and the final part of the whale. We're gonna use it more, but it's finished now and I'm quite ecstatic and happy that I've done this, because it did cause quite a lot of problems for me in the first part. So thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in more of these videos, I will post more, and if you're interested in the Flows Festival, also check that online as well. Thank you and see you in the next one. Bye!